What's good, MJ traders and investors? It's Rod with Power Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth for an MJ Sector review. Today's a review for Monday. Happy Monday. It's August 9th. Hope you had a great weekend. In today's video, as the topic of the day, we're going to be discussing Curaleaf's second quarter 2021 earnings. They had record revenue, so beat revenue estimates, but they had a slight miss on the EPS estimates, which we'll look at here in just a second. Before we jump in, make sure to smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Before we get at it here today, we'll be looking at the Curaleaf earnings, and we'll do a review on that. We'll look at the rest of the news and the events in the sector like we normally do. And then we'll look at the Curaleaf chart and do some detailed technical analysis. The rest of the US and the Canadian space. So I'll put some timestamps as well in the description below for your convenience. But the revenue increased 166% to $312 million for Curaleaf in the second quarter. Analysts were expecting $307.61 million, so we had a beat there, but the EPS came in at negative 0.01, which was a slight miss from the analysts' expectations at negative 0.002. So a little bit of a mixed bag there in terms of reactions, but still overall extremely bullish and crushed. If we take a look at their revenue from the prior quarter at $260 million, that's a huge increase of about $52 million. So congrats to the bulls. Curaleaf continues to stand out. One of my favorite MSOs for sure. And I'm a long-term investor in Curaleaf. I have a fairly large position in Curaleaf, and I plan to hold it for as long as it takes until we see at least U.S. legalization, but that's my plan, and I'm sticking to it. So second quarter 2021 revenue of $312 million, up 20% sequentially and 166% year over year. Second quarter 2021 adjusted EBITDA margin of 28% on core U.S. operations, up 400 basis points quarter over quarter. Second quarter 2021 adjusted EBITDA of $84 million, up 35% sequentially and 201% year over year. They also closed the acquisition of EMMAC, Europe's largest vertically integrated MJ company. So moving right along, Pure Sunfarms also posts quarterly profit on surging MJ revenue. So BC-based Pure Sunfarms, a subsidiary of Village Farms International, booked net sales of $24.8 million for the second quarter, a 42% increase over the previous quarter sales of $17.5. Also, Acreage Holdings Q2 revenue increased to 63% to $44.2 million. And moving right along, MJ platform Leafly goes public with a $385 million valuation via SPAC merger. Found that interesting. And we're starting to see more and more adoption, I believe. And it's only a matter of time, I think, before we have safe banking and some reform in the US. But we're starting to see a lot more activity and merger M&A. So no shortage of that in the space lately. Canadian LP, MTL, MJ. I'm not going to say that because the algo doesn't like it, but to go public by merging with Canada House. So Canada House Wellness Group going to be merging with MTL MJ. And here's some details on that. I won't go into the full detail, but you can check that out, just an effort of time on your own time. Greenlane raises $32 million, selling units at $3.16. All right, so moving on to the Curaleaf chart. So in terms of the daily time frame, you can see here that we're still in a confirmed daily downtrend. So bulls are hoping for a daily inside bar break tomorrow, and then ultimately EMA 12 has been rejecting the price now for about 21 days. So if we can close a daily candle tomorrow, we break the daily inside bar bullish, and we have a bullish reaction to this earnings, then we'll be looking for a daily candle close above EMA 12, that yellow line sitting at 1530. But ultimately what bulls want to see, if you are bullish on the stock, we're starting the daily oversold bounce here after touching down. We got as low as 2470s in the RSI. So anything under 30 is considered oversold. So starting the daily oversold bounce, and what bulls want to see is a daily inside bar bull break, and then a big of a bounce on the daily time frame as possible to allow for as much room for a daily higher low to form and a possible daily trend change. But at the moment on the weekly time frame, we do have a lack of resistance on a lot of our MJ names on the weekly time frame. Just from current levels, you're looking at about 21% of upside on Curaleaf, and we'll look at some other names here in just a moment. But I do want to just finish the Curaleaf analysis here. So we do have the 10-week moving average up at 1647. The stochastic and MACD are still, still very bearish. There's still a ways away to go before we would see a bull cross there. So still a lot of work to do in terms of the weekly chart. And then we lost the 50 weekly moving average as well. So that's sitting at 1609. So we also have the 10-week moving average there at 1647. 1609 is the 50 weekly moving average. And then we have the 50-day moving average at 1687. So that $16 to $17 range on Curaleaf is, and that's in Canadian dollars, is going to be extremely strong resistance in my opinion. We did have a death cross here as well with the daily 50 crossing through the 200 daily moving average. And we did see quite a bit of downside, but that just crossed a couple of days ago on the 3rd of August. So just questioning on how much downside we're going to see from here, or how much has already been accounted for. At this point, it's looking like we could be potentially, we need a lot of help though in the sector. The whole sector's weak at the moment. So we're going to be looking for Curaleaf to potentially, spark some momentum tomorrow, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. Let's put it that way. We could still see some death crosses on a lot of our other names as well. But what we need to do is get this big of a bounce as possible on the daily time frame, change the daily trend to an uptrend ASAP. And like I said, you can see that $16 is going to be strong resistance. We have the 200-day moving average there at 17.17. So $16 to $17 if we do get a bull reaction tomorrow. We also have the EMA 26 rate there at $16 as well. So $16, in my opinion, is going to be extremely strong resistance. We also have our previous daily lower high there at 1674. So if you are playing, if you're swinging overnight and you're looking to potentially unload at the open and reload cheaper, or if you're looking to potentially look for another entry, I'd personally be waiting. If we do open close to that $16 area tomorrow, that would be strong resistance in my opinion. And like I said, we're just anticipating a daily lower high here at the moment compared to this 1674. I would say anything under 1674 here is just a daily lower high. And just keep in mind that we're still in a daily downtrend and we need to get as big of a bounce as possible, change that trend on the daily back to an uptrend, and then we zoom out to the weekly, and then it's a weekly inside bar. So if we break 1545, weekly bounce will be underway. And then it's the same thing here. We'll look for a big of a bounce on the weekly as possible. We'll look to change the weekly trend. But a lot of names were heading to weekly oversold. And like I said, a lot of names lacking resistance on the weekly. I'll just bring up MSOS here. So MSOS getting its weekly bounce underway and a lack of resistance of about 12%. We have lack of resistance, a lot more lack of resistance on the Canadian names. Just taking a look at some of our other tier 1 MSOs. So CL weekly bounce underway. Cresco has been standing out as one of our stronger names. Taking a look at TrueLeaf. So it looks like its daily or weekly bounce is underway, but it's a potential weekly bear flag on Curaleaf. GTII, another one of our stronger names, getting close to its weekly resistance up at $43.28, but weekly bounce underway. So a lot of our names starting their weekly bounce, including MSOS. So that's going to increase the odds that we could potentially see a weekly bounce begin on Curaleaf. And like I said, from current levels, we're looking at about 20% of, a little over 20% of upside with a lack of resistance there on the weekly. Taking a look at the bull and bear list on the day today, we had KBEV, FLGC, and KHRN leading the decline. On the bull list, we had BAM, TAT, and BioHarvest. So taking a look at the Canadian space, so in terms of gainers and losers, we had XLY, PWR, PCLO leading the decline today. And on the bull list, we had SNDL, Tilray, and OGI. So Tilray closing at the high of the day, trying to get its daily bounce underway. We had a daily inside bar looking like it's breaking bullish, broke bearish, but ultimately held the recent low here at 1388. It was a double bottom. Actually, it's a triple bottom now at 1388. So 1388 is going to be key support here. If we lose 1388, there's nothing down to 1254. But again, bulls are hoping for a daily higher low and a break of resistance there at 1667. If we break 1667 from here, we confirm a daily uptrend and ultimately want to see a daily candle close above EMA 26. We had our first one here back on the 28th of July, and then we ended up having a bull reaction to earnings, and then we ended up getting daily consolidation not shortly after that. So very shortly after that, and then struggling with EMA 12 here. But today managed to close over EMA 12, and it could even be a potential equilibrium with a tightening range. So be watching to see. That's likely all we're going to be expecting at this point, as we did negate the possibility of a daily bull flag. but just showing some of our Canadian names here. So on our Canadian names, we had a lack of resistance on Tilray of about 83% before we started this weekly bounce. And now we have a couple of weekly inside bars on watch. SNDL on its from the lows here on its weekly chart, 97% lack of resistance on the weekly. OGI, we're looking at about 43%. I just want to show Hexo here as well. So Hexo, I think, is going to be due for a massive bounce once we get this weekly bounce underway. So if we can break the high of the previous weekly candle here at 407, which is the high of last week, then the weekly bounce will be underway. But just look at the percentage increase that we could see without any weekly resistance, all the way up 102% with a lack of resistance here on the weekly. But again, we need to get the daily bounce underway. EMA 12 has been rejecting Hexo now for 59, so about 60 days, 2 months. So if we can close a daily candle above EMA 12, that yellow line there at 403, that would be bullish, and then get as big of a bounce as possible on the daily, change the daily trend. Then we zoom out to the weekly, get the weekly bounce underway, and then change the weekly trend, get a higher low and higher high, change that trend. The more uptrends we have, the more confident we are as bulls. But at the moment, huge lack of resistance on that weekly chart, and I am extremely heavy. Just remember that Hexo was once a couple of days ago, last week, it was lower than we were when we had that 4-to-1 split. So in my opinion, great time to be loading up. Again, not financial advice, but this could be one of the last few times we see Hexo in the $3 to $4 range, in my opinion. Again, if the S&P 500, the broader market, everything, if we see a huge crash across the board, that could obviously things can go a lot lower than we think, but I don't think that we're going to be lasting at these levels for very long. And once we have the Redican merger, once we start to see the momentum back in the sector, once we start to see more restrictions and things like that in terms of Health Canada lift and US legalization, I think we're going to see some massive fireworks in the sector. CGC on its weekly time frame, so it had a lack of resistance of about 50%. And from the high here, we're down about 70%, 68%. So a lot of our names, Hexo from the high was down about 66%. Look at Tilray, down about 80%. So we know eventually we're going to run out of sellers, and it's looking like that time could be nearing soon. But like I said, on the bull list today, we had SNDL leading the charge today, but failed to close over EMA 12, so 26 rather. So again, what we need to see is all of our names. We want as many US names, we want as many names in the Canadian sector to change their daily trends, confirm daily uptrends, and that's going to indicate weekly bounces being underway. And then we'll zoom out to the weekly and we'll do it all over again on the weekly time frame. But at the moment, we still got a lot of work to do in the MJ space. But Curaleaf, going to be turning our heads and eyes to Curaleaf tomorrow to see if it can lift the sector. But going to end it there. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth for an MJ Sector review, and we'll see you tomorrow after market close.